Hello, Africa. You're listening to 1000 African Voices. I'm your host, Aburengwi C, coming to you from our Johannesburg studios. 1000 African Voices is a program that profiles Africans of diverse cultures who have traveled and lived across the African continent and the world. In this series, we will collect and share stories from all parts of Africa. Welcome.
1000 African Voices.
Today we are joined on 1000africanvoices.com by Feka Parchibell, who will shortly introduce herself to the listeners of 1000 African Voices. Hello, Feka.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Feka, welcome to 1000 African Voices. Can you just shortly introduce yourself to our listeners? Who is Feka Parchibell?
I am a Cameroonian from the English-speaking part, of a teacher by profession, a mom of 3 and only daughter to a family of 6. I am also an activist and a social worker.
So you're a teacher, a social worker, and an activist from Cameroon. So when people talk about Cameroon, there's always the distinction between the English-speaking and the French-speaking Cameroon. Why is that distinction important?
The distinction is important because that is the identity and the history of the people. We had the British colonized 2 regions of Cameroon, while the French colonized 8 regions of Cameroon. So the English-speaking are a minority, while the French-speaking are a majority. And in 1961, through a plebiscite, these 2 parts of Cameroon voted to become one. That's the English-speaking Cameroon voted to join the French-speaking Cameroon in October, 1st of October, 1961.
Maybe we can go back into the history of colonialization. When was Cameroon colonized by both the French and the English?
Cameroon was colonized, I think, from 1954. I mean, the English part of Cameroon, to around 1961.
Okay, I'll tell you why I'm asking that. Because now there is a clear distinction between the French-speaking Cameroon and the English-speaking Cameroon. In my mind, I'm wondering whether there was that division between that colonial period. So I'm trying to think of whether the country was divided before it was officially colonized, just to get a sense of where the division comes from.
Initially, the Germans were the first who came to Cameroon. By then, Cameroon was just Cameroon. And then when they went during the race for colonization, when the Western world came back to colonize Cameroon, the Germans were kind of late. So upon their arrival, Britain had arrived and was already working in the English Cameroons. So the Northwest and the Southwest regions are the English Cameroons. So British had come, and things, most of them were along the coasts of the Atlantic, the banks of the Atlantic coast, the southwest part of Cameroon. So it was easy for them to go through the Atlantic coast to get to the southwest region, and then they moved up to the northwest region. So when the French came, they took the remaining part of Cameroon. So Britain was in Cameroon until 1961, when the English-speaking Cameroons were given, they had their independence, and they were given the option to choose either to join Nigeria or to join the East Cameroon. Yeah.
Okay, so the tensions have been around. I understand that currently there is a crisis in Cameroon. Can you maybe talk to us about what's currently happening in your country as we speak?
As we speak right now, there is, I don't want to call it a crisis because it's far past the stage of crisis. There is an ongoing war in the northwest and southwest regions where houses, villages have been burnt, and we have thousands of people who are internally displaced. They're staying in the bushes. Some have even gone to neighboring Nigeria as refugees. And then there are so many people leaving these two regions to seek refuge in the French-speaking part of Cameroon. So it is a deplorable situation, very deplorable situation, with people killed, especially the young men and women and girls are raped. I mean, it's really pathetic. So there is a clash between the state armed group and the non-state armed group. Some of the people of the English-speaking Cameroon want an independence. That's they want to be on their own, and they even have a name for the country. They call their own side Ambazonia. And then they have the non-state armed group that is fighting the state armed group. They call themselves Amber soldiers. The clash is really between the Amber soldiers and the military forces. The government military forces is so tense. But the unfortunate thing is that innocent civilians are the victims because they're the ones who are shot at, who are killed, who are tortured. Their houses are burned, villages are burned, property, everything destroyed.
Feka, for you as an activist, how is this war affecting you personally?
First, it makes it very, it's a sad thing. Personally, I am demoralized because I live in constant fear. I don't know what is going to happen next. I don't know if next stray bullet might take me. I don't know if I might be shot at, So it's really weighing down on me personally. And working is really not easy too in such a condition.
Yeah, it's really difficult I can only imagine, but I cannot pretend to know how it's affecting ordinary Cameroonians. What is the split in percentage terms, just roughly, between the English-speaking side and the French-speaking side? When you say the English are the minority, what's the percentage more or less of English versus French-speaking?
I can give the English 20% and the French 80%.
And the leader of the country, President Paul Biya, does he then come from the majority?
Yes, he is from the majority. He's from the majority.
And in the midst of all of this, Feka, and maybe on a lighter note, you were this year listed as one of the top 100 most influential young Africans. How did you receive the news in the midst of what's happening in your country right now?
I was overwhelmed. But at the same time, I couldn't really rejoice because the tension is really high and you want to be very careful so that you don't get attacked, you don't become a victim. That was how I saw it. That was how the news got to me.
Yeah. I mean, as a host on this show, we do pay careful attention to the 100 most influential young Africans because we believe that the people on that list are representative of this African voice that we are trying to amplify through this medium. So personally, I was quite glad to see that your name appeared because it gives us an opportunity to then find out a bit more about the person that you are. And maybe on that note, we're going to switch and talk about Feka Parchibell at a personal level. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about yourself and the work that you do? When I Google your name, what seems to come up more often than not is the work that you've done around the sanitary pads. And maybe you can sort of talk to us about that work as well as the person that you are?
Okay, so I am an only daughter. My parents gave birth to four of us, three boys and a girl, and I happen to be the second child. Growing up was not very easy. It was very difficult because I had a father who was really violent, like he would beat up my mom. And then we did not really have much time to talk. Like he spoke with my brothers, but didn't speak much with me. I had to play the intermediate part. Like I had to play the role of the mediator between my mom and my dad. Because there were times when my dad came back home very drunk. And when my mom wants to talk, he will beat her up. And then before you know it, he leaves the house. When he leaves the house, I would be the one, as young as I was, like 5, 6 years old, I would run behind him and tell him, you can't go without giving us money for food. And that was how he'll give the money to me. I'll give my mom and then she will cook. That wasn't healthy at all for us. So we grew up like that. And at one point, we were separated from our parents. That is, my father took us away from them and distributed to his siblings. So at 10, I had to go to my auntie's house. And my elder brother went to my uncle. My kid brother went to my auntie. And my immediate follower went to my grandparents. My paternal. So all of us were given out to a paternal family. And that was very stressful for my mom. And so she wasn't brave. I think I'm stronger than her, far more stronger than her. Because of trauma and depression, she died when I was almost completing my education. I think I barely had completed secondary school when she passed on. So now where I was staying, it wasn't very easy too. The challenges were huge. Like I could not talk. My opinion was never sought for. Like no one cared to know how I felt about things. So that kind of made me rebellion. But I am happy because that was a positive rebellion. So what I never wanted, if you imposed it on me, I didn't do it until I finally had my advanced level and then went to the professional school where I had a diploma and struggled. I had a degree. Now, I eventually got married. When I got married now, I had 3 kids. But I saw a replica of my mom's sufferings because my spouse became violent. So I had to do something. I had to do something really fast about it. I did not want my children to grow up in violence. And I did not want to be violated by whosoever. So I had to quit the marriage and then began advocacy, began empowering women and girls. Because I felt that if my mom had been empowered, there were so many things she would have done that would have kept her alive, maybe till this moment. So I was like, okay, I wasn't going to let stress or trauma define my life for me. So I was going to take my life and take concrete decisions concerning my life and do the things I know I have to do. So that was how I eventually started working with women, working with girls. And as my work, what I discovered was that in most of our homes, especially in my own home growing up as a child, what brought most of the violence most times was because of money. Like each time my mom asked for money from my daddy and he did not have, he would not tell her he didn't have. He would beat her up. So I said that, okay, if women could be empowered economically, then they were going to be able to avoid some of the domestic violence. And if the girl children were given opportunity to go to school, they too would be able to reason properly for themselves and take meaningful decisions. So that was how, thank God, I became a teacher. So I was working with these girls. So I started by creating a gender club in my school where boys and girls got together and we shared our worries. That was the initial aim. I wanted to know how the children lived, how they grew up. But I discovered that apart from those challenges, normal domestic violence and all of that, the girls had another problem, which was that of managing their menstruation. Some of them kept out of school. So I discovered that at certain parts during the month, you had some girls not coming to school. And so when I wanted to talk with them, they made me understand that they did not have money to buy the pads. Now, when they stain themselves in school, their classmates will mock at them. They did not want that either. So I had to look out of for a means to reach out to these children. So that was how I decided to start doing the reusable sanitary pad. Initially, I bought disposable pads, but that was very expensive and very challenging because there were moments where I couldn't, because most times I do that from my personal account. So it was very huge and challenging.
So it's reusable sanitary pads.
Yes.
How does that work? When you said they are reusable, how is that set up?
So the reusable sanitary pads are pads that we sew them with fabrics, either cotton or flannel, that are skin friendly, and towels. We put the liners inside and we use towels as liners inside, and then we use the pull. Pull is another fabric that is used underneath the pad so that it doesn't stain you. It doesn't leak. So even if you're soaked, it doesn't come out, so you don't stain yourself. So that is what we use to produce the reusable pads. Now, the reusable pads to my target population, which is women and girls in rural communities, the reusable pads to them is sustainable because they wash, they dry. It really gets dry, and then they tie them up in a clean bag and keep so that it's not exposed to dust or to anything. And during the next period, they take it from wherever it was kept and they use it. So that way they don't get to buy. So they can use it for like 6 months before thinking of replacing. So not only do I give these pads to them, I also train them how to produce the pads.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking, Feka? Like, the reason I'm asking that is just listening to your voice, the sense that I get is that you've had to carry so much load on your shoulders. I'm wondering what your age is, just to put things into context. How old are you in 2018?
2018, I turned 40.
You turned 40.
Yes.
How long have you been an activist?
I've been an activist for 5 years today.
So it has been quite a while. And the subject that you teach at school, now what is that?
I teach English language and literature.
Because Cameroon is a country divided into English-speaking and French-speaking, I'm wondering how things such as the media are structured. So if I turn on a television in Cameroon, do I have the choice to select between English and French?
Unfortunately, the government-owned media houses don't have that. But the private media houses, I think there is one that has that option, where they have the English channel and the French channel.
So when you say the government channels don't have that, does it mean on the government side it's only French?
On the government side, it's more of French and little of English. if I may put it that way. So the only time where you can have like a balance is during news hour where they read the news in English and French.
Okay, and you're an English teacher. The reason I'm asking, I'm trying to get a sense of an English-speaking child in Cameroon, the kind of exposure they have in terms of your cultural elements. Because in most countries, people's views and culture are shaped by the media that we consume. So if you're consuming media that is in a language that's foreign to you, it must have some impact on the person that you become. I find it interesting that as an English teacher, the media is biased more towards the French language. So that's really just out of interest. Okay. Yeah, Feka, as I said, the sense that I get is the sense of someone who feels the need to carry this burden so that she can pave the way for future generations. So I think I'm starting to understand why you are nominated as this year's or one of the top 100 most influential young Africans on the continent, because the work that you do is truly vital. So thank you for your willingness to execute on becoming a better African citizen. I think we need more people like yourself.
Just to add, I reach out to girls even in Uganda as well. Like I have distributed and trained how to sew the reusable sanitary pads at the Changwali refugee settlement in Uganda, Tinder School for the Deaf in Kampala, the Tororo Inclusive Education School, and Katwade Village, all in Uganda. So at least I work in Cameroon and Uganda.
What made you choose Uganda? I mean, to move from Cameroon to Uganda, you have to go over the Republic of the Congo, the DRC. Why all the way to Uganda? What is the significance of Uganda to you?
When I started my activism and my job, the first people who opened their arms to me was this group who had just won a project to train some young people at the Changwali refugee settlement. So these refugees have an NGO called CIOTA. CIOTA is Cobras Youth Organization to Transform Africa. Now, this is a group of refugees that is from Cobras. You have Cobras C for Congo, B Burundi, R Rwanda, and Uganda. These are the group of refugees that came together, and Sudan came together, and they formed this NGO, CIOTA. So CIOTA and A Million Faces Renaissance and Tongo Youth from Ghana had to do a training there. So I was discussing with one of them, and they were like, oh, it's good to know you're a teacher, so why don't you come and join us for the training? So the first training I ever did in my life, a real training, that was life-touching, was in Uganda. So because I was invited to be a part of that training, youth leadership and entrepreneurship training, I went there. That was how I got interested in working in Uganda, because they were the very first people to open their arms to me and accept me. So to me, Uganda is my second home. Like I go there every year.
Okay. And how do you find Uganda? How does it compare to Cameroon culturally? Are there any differences that you pick up?
There are a lot of differences, especially they have a lot of cultural differences. For instance, what I discovered in Katwade is a village in Uganda. The way the women greet their men is very different from what entails in Cameroon. So the very first time I saw that, I was shocked, To me, I felt like they were punishing the women. But I later on understood that it was their culture and they were used to it, and that was it. So it's very different culturally. It's very different.
So what is it about the way they greet that made you think that the women were being punished?
Okay, like if a woman, young or old, sees a man coming, they just kneel, they just go on their knees. They go on their knees, yes, and they greet, and that is not common with us. So I was shocked.
So now have you taken up that custom? So when you go to Uganda and a man approaches, if you are in that village, you say it's Katwa village?
Katwade.
Katwade.
Yes.
Okay. So when you're in Katwade village and a man is coming your way, have you now learned to also do the same?
It's difficult for me.
Okay, so they immediately know that no, she can't be from Katwade, she must be coming from somewhere else.
Yes, and then the way I dress too. When I went there, I discovered the women don't put on pants, so they're always wearing skirts or gowns. So I went there with lots of pants, and so they were looking. I was kind of strange, really strange.
Wow.
So, but then after, if I have to go there, each time I go there, I take gowns. At least I can do that.
Okay. Now, awesome. I think what you're saying is it sort of reemphasizes once again why, for all of us as Africans, or for those who are African, and I suppose it goes for any person really in the world, the value of traveling away or out of your comfort zone exposes you to different cultures. And it is within that exposure that I think we grow. Because now your perspective of women in Katwade, in a way, has an impact on how you view the world. And if you were to move to Ethiopia or visit South Sudan, the cultural practices and norms will be so different that you have no option but to grow in how you view the world. So that's really just a general comment to encourage our listeners to travel as much as they can, especially around Africa, because we may be one continent, but we're definitely not homogeneous, culturally speaking, that is.
Yes, that's very true. Very true. It's a lot. Like I really learn a lot. Yeah. Like when the Katwade culture is almost similar to the Yorubas in Nigeria. The Yoruba women greet similarly, but the difference is, it's like they just, kind of genuflex, show this respect and all of that. They don't actually kneel down and remain there and, like in Katwade. But their greetings are similar.
No, I laugh when you use the phrase remain there. So in my mind, I have this picture. I think I need to visit Katwade. And as a man visiting Katwade, it must be interesting to have that perspective.
Sure, it should be.
Okay, let's maybe talk a bit about food. So when you are at home, what kind of food does Feka like to cook? The kind of food you like to eat? So if I were to visit your home, or anyone was to visit your home, what kind of food can I look forward to?
If you were to visit my home, I'm going to serve you corn fufu. That is, it's maize flour. You cook it. We call it corn fufu. In the local parlance, we call it fufu corn. I'll serve you that with huckleberry, which we call njama, and burnt chicken, which we call kate in my local dialect.
Kate.
Because kate.
Okay. And do people eat chicken more than any other form of meat? Is that the preferred option, chicken?
In my village, that is how we receive visitors with chicken, kata kata. We do
Hmm.
it the traditional way. It is burnt and then you cook it in palm oil and you serve it with huckleberry and the corn fufu.
Hmm.
So it's how I'll receive you.
Hmm. All right, thank you. It will be great to one day be able to visit Cameroon. And that is why it pains me when a country is at war with itself, because then it impacts on not only the locals, but it also impacts on those who would wish to visit Cameroon. I had the pleasure of spending about 2 years working with, it was an English speaking Cameroonian, and we spent 2 years and I learned quite a bit about the different cultures. So it's said
Yeah.
that I cannot return the favor by going to Cameroon because of what's happening now in the country. So I really do hope that what's happening currently is something that will pass. Do you think we can look forward to a day when Cameroon is at peace, or does something dramatic need to happen for there to be change?
I just pray and I hope that peace returns to Cameroon.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of pride because I don't see why. To me personally, I think the government should call for a ceasefire. If the government can call for a ceasefire, peace is definitely going to return. And
Hmm.
Cameroon will be that beautiful country that the world has known it to be.
Yeah.
If there's no call for ceasefire, then peace may never return to Cameroon.
Just my mind is going through the map of Africa. And as you're talking about Cameroon, I'm thinking in my mind about Sudan and South Sudan, that the war in that region went on for quite a while. And I wonder whether we're seeing a similar pattern. It sounds like we are in Cameroon.
Yeah, we don't want to get to Sudan and South Sudan kind of war.
Yeah.
But if care is not taken, we're going to even fear a genocide. Yeah,
Wow.
we fear another Rwanda in Cameroon. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, just to
It's very,
give people a sense here, it is quite sad. It is tragic in many, many ways. I think earlier you mentioned that you're a teacher, you're an activist. What else do you do? And when you're not being an activist or when you're not at school, what do you do for yourself just to relax a bit? Do you have any hobbies, things that make Feka happy?
when I am not busy, I am in the kitchen. I, I try to do pastries. I like to discover food. I like to do some new crazy cookery ideas. I experiment a lot when I'm not busy.
Hmm.
So I'm in the kitchen when I'm not busy.
So like this week, what are some of the creations that you're coming up with in the kitchen?
Unfortunately, this week I have been very, very busy. Very busy the whole of this week.
Wow.
So no time for myself even.
Yeah. Okay. And the girls that you help, who funds your work? Because you say it sounds like you're producing the pads yourself, but who pays for all of that? And do you have people helping you to make sure that you produce enough for all the kids that need the reusable pads?
I rely solely on my friends, and what comes in from them can never be enough. And then I have a partner, Rose Academies in the US. They try from time to time to assist, but it's not enough. So we really, really like presently the current project I'm working on. I'm working with the internally displaced persons right now who are living in the bushes. And I am looking at over 20,000 women and girls in the bushes who are in dire need of these pads and other non-food items for their personal hygiene. So it's very challenging because right up to this moment, I've not been able to satisfy 3,000 of the women. So which means I have satisfied just a very few number of the women. And a whole majority, a whole bulk is out there hoping and expecting. The means is not there.
Yeah.
Because what my friends would give, we cannot even help up to, may assist like just 20 women, that is
Wow.
not very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Feka, those who will listen to this story and be touched by it and want to contribute to your cause, how can people assist and how can they get hold of you?
They can send, like if they want to assist, they can send an email to me at parchibellfeka@yahoo.fr, or if they want to send the fabrics or whatever they have that is not cash, they can post to Hope for Vulnerables and Orphans, BP 180 Tiko, Tiko, Southwest Region, Cameroon.
Okay. And is there a website is it Hope for Vulnerable and Orphans?
Yes, there is a website, www.hovocam.com.
Okay. Hovo, HOVO, Chem, is camp?
Cam, CAM.
CAM, okay. So www.hovocam.com, HOVOCAM.com.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
Yeah, I really sure hope that some of our listeners can contribute to your cause because, as I said when the show began, Africa does need more people like yourself. The kind of work that you're doing, even in the midst of the war that's happening in Cameroon, to be able to keep your head high and help the kids that need that help the most. There's really nothing much to be said except that Africa really does need more heroes like yourself. So, Feka, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say. I'm sort of curious, maybe as we start wrapping up, to find out what your ultimate dream is. What are some of the things you still want to achieve? What are some of the things you want to see, whether it's in Cameroon or Uganda? What is your ultimate dream?
My dream is for me to get up one morning and see the government of Cameroon and Uganda give sanitary pads to girls for free. They are giving condoms. They can give the sanitary pads to these girls for free. And then I also want to set up a school where those very, very poor girls and women can enroll and learn skills that will make them financially independent so they can be the change they want to be.
Miss Feka Parchibell from Cameroon, it's been, I normally say, a pleasure. And I want to say that, but I've been so deeply touched by what's happening in your country that part of me is sad, but part of me is also encouraged to know that there are people like yourself, even in the midst of war, people that remain positive and people that want to make a difference. I've learned a lot about not only what's happening in Cameroon, but I've also learned a lot about how to remain resolute in the midst of difficulty. So from the 1000 African Voices team, I would really truly like to wish you and the girls that you help all the very best. And I sure hope that Cameroon can get out of the situation that it's in right now. So Feka, thank you for joining and for agreeing to be part of our project to record 1,000 African voices.
Thank you so much. I am very humbled and I don't mind talking any day, any time. Thank you for your words of encouragement because that is what we really need right now. I appreciate. Thank you.
1,000 African Voices.
You've been listening to 1,000 African Voices. Please join us next time as we bring you yet another African voice. 1,000 African Voices is produced by Aburengwi C. Our sound engineer is Bandile Lukele, with our head researcher Jones Maleka. The soundtrack for the show is by the legendary Salif Keita from his 1995 album Forlorn. For more information, including the contact details of our guests, please visit us on our website www.1000africanvoices.com. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes by searching for 1,000 African Voices. If you would like to sponsor our show and partner with us on this exciting journey, please leave your details on the website. Until next time, Kungana Africa, and take care.
I'm the man who cooks the food and feed the street people in the afternoon. I'm the lady with the broom, sweeping the halls of your son's preschool. I'm the soldier who's up all night, making sure everything's alright. And if you ask me, I'm quite fine, being an ordinary person doing what's right. Yesterday at the football game, a little girl asked me my name. She said, "Sir, I've seen you before, tell me who are you?" I said, "I am a legend that you never heard of before." Said, "I am a lion, but you never heard me roar." I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, that means on the ocean of fame I'm an unknown sailor. I'm the percussionist playing with the whalers, the one with the shaker, the mover and shaker. My name wasn't on the front of the paper, but me not cater. Much more than the work is greater. Creation glorifies creator. So all deeds done are in the name of my maker. I am a legend that you probably never hear about. Words from the lion's mouth. I am a hero that nobody celebrates, but if one person remembers my name, give praise, that means I made a change. Story of my life, ordinary person just like you. If you take a look inside, you see the great things that people do. We're out there changing lives day and night, day in, day out. BBC don't show it, CNN don't show it. He's out.